I see a lot of things going on that I'm like, not only are you not going to make that sale or build that relationship, but you're probably doing damage to your brand in the process. And so if I can give a little bit of advice, maybe it'll get taken in, maybe it'll help. There's folks who I think are kind of falling prey to some of the standard sales tactics and playbooks that the gurus in the space will tell you to follow and that they work perfectly. But I do think insurance is different. And I think on the receiving end, we shut off to that company permanently. A few points of advice. Number one, take the 3 seconds and look at the person's profile. Case in point, the number of messages I get on LinkedIn that start with, we've helped lots of insurance agents like you. And I'm like, I'm not an insurance agent. If you looked at my profile for even just a moment, you'd probably know that. In all of those instances, they should not have been pitching to me. I'm not a prospect.
I'm Bryan Falchuk with some advice for solution providers and vendors, and this is the future of insurance.
Hey, everybody, a bit of a different episode this time. I'm in between episodes. I was just on the road at Insurtech Insights and did a couple of on-stage live interviews there. I don't have the videos yet, so I can't release them, but they're coming soon. They should be out next week. But I wanted to fill the space with something that also came from not just ITI, but a number of the conferences that I attended as I've reflected on my time with and advising insurtechs and on the carrier side, on the receiving end of some of that vendor outreach. And then things I see when I'm at these conferences and the way that I'm engaged with, or I see others engage with from some of the vendors, I thought maybe I would share some of the advice and guidance that I give folks that I've advised or consulted with or had a relationship with and supported over the years for the sake of helping out, not just those companies, but also the people on the receiving end, because I will say from experience, we're exhausted. It's too much. And I see a lot of things going on that I'm like, not only are you not going to make that sale or build that relationship, but you're probably doing damage to your brand in the process. And so if I can give a little bit of advice, maybe it'll get taken in, maybe it'll help. And there are plenty of great folks who know what they're doing and go about it the right way, especially for the industry that they're working in, insurance industry. But then there's other folks who I think are kind of falling prey to some of the standard sales tactics and playbooks that are out there that the gurus in the space will tell you to follow and that they work perfectly. And I'm wrong. I've been on the other side of it, and I've been on the sales side, and I've lived it. And I do think, I know every industry probably says they're different, but I do think insurance is different. And I think these sales playbooks that would tell you, hit everybody, send thousands of emails, thousands of direct messages or private messages on LinkedIn or in the apps for these different events. And those who aren't really prospects, they just won't respond. I don't think that's the right answer. Blanket everyone. Don't spend any time trying to tailor your message or understand if they're really a prospect or not. If they don't matter, they just won't respond. I don't think that's the right answer at all. And I think on the receiving end, we're really sick of it. And when we get that kind of outreach, we don't just not respond, we shut off to that company permanently, most likely. And we're probably likely to tell someone else, which means this is where the brand damage comes in. So a few points of advice. Number one, take the 3 seconds and look at the person's profile. It's really easy to do today. Go back 15, 20 years, you couldn't. But today, I don't think you have an excuse for not knowing whether the company is an actual potential prospect for you. Case in point, the number of messages I get on LinkedIn that start with something along the lines of, we've helped lots of insurance agents like you. And I'm like, I'm not an insurance agent. If you looked at my profile for even just a moment, you'd probably know that. Or we've helped lots of insurance companies just like yours. I'm not an insurance company. I don't run one. I haven't worked at one since 2018. You'd probably know all that if you just looked in my profile. Or people who see that I'm on the board of a company, or I've worked somewhere in the past, or I've advised them, and they talk to me as if I'm a current employee of the company, or I am a senior leader at the company. I had a board position where someone started reaching out with HR support and recruiting support. I'm like, I don't work there. I'm a board member, but I'm not an employee. So I'm not going to hire you to fill our staffing needs. You would know that if you even just looked at the word board member in my profile. Just seeing that I'm connected to the company doesn't mean I'm an employee of the company. If you go to a lot of company pages and you click on the people tab in LinkedIn, you'll see loads of people who don't work there. They might have worked there in the past. They might have a relationship with the company. They might follow it, but it doesn't mean that they're an employee. And I feel like it's way too easy to whittle that down, and you just end up turning people off by doing that. So, my first take is spend that little bit of extra time and vet someone to see if they're actually a potential prospect. I think that's really important. All right. I know that's not what the sales experts out there will tell you to do, but I think they're wrong. And I know they would tell you, like, oh, this guy doesn't know. Well, don't forget a lot of the ways that these gurus make their money is by selling tactics, plans, programs, trainings, whatever, on how to make millions selling to other people. Well, you're the other people they're talking about. So like I boil it down like this is like you get pitched something that's like, here's how to make millions selling classes on how to make millions to people online. It's like you're the product that they're talking about. You've fallen for it. So I don't think those people are actually sales gurus or gods or deserve to be put on a pedestal. I think you talk to the practitioners who have actually had success and have lived on both sides of that. I did surprisingly well on the sales side. Not being a sales guy, I didn't expect things to be as successful as they were selling into carriers. And I've been on the receiving end of that. And I've been connected to loads of companies that have sold into the insurance industry, into carriers and others in the industry. So I've gotten to see this all firsthand. And I'm telling you, that shotgun approach that you're being sold on doesn't work. So that's number one. Number two, when it comes to being at the conferences, these conferences all have their apps. That's fine. I think we all know and agree the apps aren't great. They're not easy to find people with. They're hard to network with. A lot of the attendees aren't checking the app, so you're trying to get time with them. They're not using them. Now, granted, the ones who have these fixed networking spaces where the apps are used to book that, they're more likely to get some of that interaction going and to actually use the app. But generally speaking, a lot of the carrier folks, the folks you probably want to meet with, they're probably not in the app. So you need to think more creatively about that is how do you get connected to them? And that's where LinkedIn's your friend again, but not through a scattergun. Like spend a little bit of time, make sure they're actually the right person to talk to. When you reach out, have a real message that speaks to what you actually want to talk to them about. I get loads of things that are like, oh, we just, want to talk about all sorts of potential and we want to hear your ideas for how we might support each other. I'm like, yeah, that's not true. You want to sell something to me. So you're wasting both of our time. And we're going to have to go through this dance and you're not going to be honest about it. And if you were just up front, you'd hear back from me that, hey, I'm actually not a prospect. Like clearly you think something about me that is not who I am. You haven't done your homework. If you had reached out to me, you'd save your time. And it's not just about me not wanting to be annoyed or, go through a sales pitch that is not applicable. That's a total waste of your time. So if you're on the sales side, your time is precious, especially if it's at one of these events that you paid a lot of money to go to. You want to make sure you walk away with the right sort of commercial value from it. Don't waste your time on people that you shouldn't have been meeting with. And if you were just more upfront and clearer, you'd get there. Now, it doesn't mean be like too direct or rude or pushy or anything like that. And I think probably there's some fear of that. Well, if I tell them that, I'm hoping to sell to them, look, they know that's what it is. So it's sort of like flowery generalizations. Be clear with like, this is what we do. I think this would be really helpful to your business because of XYZ. I see that, we are in personalized auto and I know that that's the majority of your book. Well, okay, that's a clear connection and you've taken the time to figure that out. I've had people pitch stuff that's like, you do workers' comp stuff and we only write homeowners insurance. Like, why are you talking to us about? We are not a prospect for you. If you had been up front, we could have been like, hey, sorry, we actually don't write workers' comp. Not a good fit for us. You both save your time, right? That's a good story. But wasting your time in the app, not a good idea if the app's not fruitful. So if that's an event where people aren't using the app, which unfortunately for the events is the majority of them in terms of at least networking, you got to look elsewhere. And you need to go back to my first point about having specific, targeted, educated outreach and messaging. Be honest, right? The thing I've seen happen at every conference that I've been to, every insurtech conference I've been to lately, is at least once I will be in a meeting with someone and a salesperson who has already hit me multiple times in the app and possibly also on LinkedIn with, again, the very generic, flowery, like clearly doesn't understand whether I'm actually a prospect or not. that person will just come right into the meeting, hand outstretched, and just start talking with no real appreciation for the fact that you've just interrupted a conversation. And like in two of those three settings, one, I was standing talking with someone, so I could see like, you thought it was casual. Still not polite to interrupt a conversation like that. But in two of them, I was at a meeting table, sat with someone, looking face to face, clearly engaged in a conversation, and the person just cut right in. That's super rude. It's not necessary. It's also not going to work. I cannot think of a single instance where interrupting a meeting to pitch something that in all of those instances, they should not have been pitching to me. I'm not a prospect, not a fit at all. That would never work out, even if it was a clear fit for me. Wrong answer. Even if I told them, like, yeah, let's find time and catch up, that doesn't mean please come interrupt me when I'm talking to somebody else, right? So just basic 101 social skills, don't interrupt existing conversations. It's tricky. You want to meet with that person. You don't want to miss your chance. I had someone who was lurking for like 20 minutes while I was in one of these meetings. That was also really awkward. And I totally get it. He was trying to grab me. We had talked ahead of time. That wasn't the time to do it. And that might mean you miss your chance to do it in person. But if you've already made the connection and you try and it doesn't work out, follow up. You can talk other times. Zoom, right? Like Zoom, Teams, whatever it is, you can find a time to catch up. So cutting into meetings or lurking for very long stretches of time, I get like 1 or 2 minutes, but like standing right next to the people, the conversation is not yours. It gets awkward and uncomfortable. You are more likely to do permanent damage to your ability to build a relationship there than to break in and have this like, oh wow, I interrupted their meeting and suddenly got this huge deal out of it. That's not going to happen. So being more specific in your messaging and like actually spending the 3 seconds to figure out if they're really a prospect, being upfront and clear and communicating in the right platform for the person you're trying to talk to. And I know that might sound tough to figure out, but it actually isn't. I've been there. Like it's pretty obvious when the apps aren't working. You need to go to LinkedIn. If you got email, that's great. Maybe they're not responding. Maybe LinkedIn, they don't respond, but you got to try and you need to put a little bit of thought into it. And lastly, just basic social skills. Don't interrupt meetings. Don't be a lurker, or at least not more than like, hey, maybe you had the next time slot and they're running late. Like, fine. You can stand there and just be polite about it. But sort of like 20, 30 minutes of just standing there creepily, you're wasting your own time. Right. So that's just a bit of like basic social skills, I think. And I also appreciate a lot of the stuff is cultural. So maybe some of those approaches work better in other cultures or other industries. Totally take that. I'm speaking to US, primarily P&C, B2B enterprise sales within the insurance industry. I think that that's basically good advice. And I've been in other markets. I think it probably holds in lots of other markets too. Maybe not all of them, but you should at least question some of this like sales, sales gold guidance of like just hit everyone. And it's about law of large numbers and get as many into the funnel at the beginning as you can, and the good stuff will work out for you in the end. It doesn't work that way. Not in this industry, not in like large scale, complex enterprise B2B sales, SaaS sales. Doesn't work that way at all. It's relationship driven. And that means starting with being an informed, culturally or socially aware human being. So a bit of an aside, but I've had enough of those conversations and witnessed enough of what I think are the wrong behaviors that I thought, let me throw this out there, see if it's helpful. Hopefully it resonates with some of you. We are in a very different day and age from a sales standpoint where you can really figure out like who should you be going to and what can I understand about that potential prospect from a business mix standpoint, from a structure standpoint. I mean, you can search LinkedIn for the specific roles that you're targeting, a chief claims officer or COO or a chief actuary. Like search the name of the company in those roles. You'll probably find the person, most likely, not 100%, but most likely. Look at their annual reports, look on their website for leadership team. These are not things that were available to our predecessors, right? Go back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, you couldn't do any of that. And there was no LinkedIn. People weren't publishing these things on their website. It's a different day and age now. You can get smart on the prospect, honestly, 15 minutes is probably all you need. You can get smart enough to do a materially better job, and you'll be shocked how much better those conversations go and how much more you're an informed, capable person talking to them about their real issues. I always say what you're going for is that moment where the person across the table from you falls back in their chair and they just say, oh, they understand why my life is so hard. They get it and they can help me. That's what you're going for. And you can't get there with shotgun approaches or interrupting meetings or not even spending a basic amount of time to get smart on the person that you're reaching out to. But you can get there today. The tools are there. So hopefully that's helpful. Totally an aside. I know this may not apply to everybody, but I think a lot of that actually is just general like smart networking. We are going to more events these days, we're back in person for a lot of stuff, being a good citizen of the events, making the most out of it. And also for you, if you're on the receiving end of it, how can you watch for someone who's clearly put the thought into whether you're the right person for them to be talking to, or whether you're actually just set up to have your time wasted? So something to think about. Hopefully it resonated and is valuable. And I will see you all back next time. I've got 2 really senior interviews from ITI with leaders from very interesting and wildly different sized companies. Get a Fortune 50 and insurtech startup that's public. It'll be good conversations. And one of them, I feel bad. I put him on the spot, but it was necessary. It was a good question. And he just had to sit there while I went off on something, but it was good. And he called me out for it, but it's all good. So interesting stuff. I'm excited to bring those episodes out to you. Hopefully this is valuable, and I'll see you back next time. Thanks, everyone.